Welcome to Dr. CM Edcast, your go-to resource for medical learning. Through discussions, case studies, tutorials, and debates, we help you learn, grow, serve.
Hello, and welcome. Today, we're going to dive deep into one of the most ancient and, frankly, most critical parts of our nervous system, the brainstem. You can think of it as the vital, stalk-like bridge that connects your brain to the rest of your body. It's the absolute control center for our most essential, life-sustaining functions.
Okay, so let's get oriented first. What you're looking at here is a view from the back of the skull. You can see the brainstem tucked away deep inside, protected by all these other structures. It really acts as a stalk, connecting the spinal cord, which would be coming up from below, to the rest of the brain above. I mean, just look at its central, shielded position. That alone tells you just how unbelievably important this structure is.
So here's our game plan for today. We'll start with a quick introduction to the brainstem as a whole. Then, we're going to zoom in on its lowest part, the medulla oblongata, looking at both its external features and then its internal layers. And we'll wrap things up by summarizing the key functional areas we've uncovered.
All right, let's get into it. The brainstem, it's not really a single thing, but a composite structure. It's made up of the medulla oblongata, the pons, and the midbrain. It is, in every sense of the word, the vital connection between our spinal cord and the higher centers of the brain.
Its functions are, well, mind-bogglingly diverse. First off, it's basically a superhighway for information. You've got all these sensory signals traveling up to the brain and all the motor commands traveling back down to the body, and they all pass through here. Second, it houses the automatic pilot centers that control our breathing, our heart rate, and even our state of consciousness. And third, it contains the little command centers, the nuclei, for 10 of our 12 cranial nerves. That's everything from eye movement to swallowing to digestion.
Okay, so for the rest of our time together, we're really going to zero in on the most inferior part of the brainstem, the medulla oblongata. Let's start by just taking a look at its external features.
Now, what's really cool here is that we're seeing two very different faces of the medulla. On the left, that's the view from the front, the anterior view, and you can clearly see these two prominent ridges called the pyramids. Right next to them, you've got these oval-shaped bulges. Those are the olives. Now, if you look to the image on the right, the posterior view, the whole landscape changes. The upper part of the medulla actually opens up to form the floor of the fourth ventricle. And you can spot the gracile and cuneate tubercles, those little bumps that mark the location of some really important relay stations for sensory information.
Right at the very bottom of those pyramids we just saw, something absolutely crucial happens: the decussation of the pyramids. It's a fancy term, but it just means a crossing. This is the exact anatomical point where about 3/4 of the motor nerve fibers coming down from the brain cross over to the other side. So if you've ever wondered why the left side of your brain controls the right side of your body and vice versa, this is it. This is the spot where it happens.
So we've seen the outside. Now it's time to take a journey inward. We're going to explore the medulla's internal structure by looking at cross-sections at 3 different key levels. This is where we'll see the really intricate organization of all its wiring and processing centers.
This table here is going to be our roadmap for the next few slides. We're going to start at the bottom, at the level of the pyramidal decussation, and move our way up to the level of the olives. As we do, I want you to just watch how the internal structures, the nuclei and tracts, rearrange themselves, and how that little central cavity begins to transform. All right, first stop, the lowest level. This diagram shows it perfectly. See those corticospinal fibers that make up the pyramids? You can see them crossing right over the midline. This is that great motor decussation we just defined, captured right here in a schematic. And this is what it looks like in reality. This is an actual tissue sample that's been stained to make the nerve fibers stand out. You can actually see those dark, crossing bundles of the pyramidal decussation down at the bottom. It's amazing to see the diagram come to life, isn't it? Okay, moving just a bit higher up, we run into another massive crossing event. This one is called the Great Sensory Decussation. Here, these fibers, called the internal arcuate fibers, sweep across the midline, and they form a huge new sensory pathway called the medial lemniscus. This is the pathway that carries all the information about fine touch and your body's position up to the brain.
And here it is again, in the corresponding stain. You can really appreciate those delicate, arching fibers as they cross over, forming that dense, dark band of the medial lemniscus just behind the pyramids, which are still very prominent.
Now, as we get to our final level, the whole picture changes dramatically. That tiny central canal has now opened up wide to form the fourth ventricle. And look, the most prominent new feature here is that large, wavy structure of the inferior olivary nucleus. That's what gives this level its name.
This stain really captures the strange beauty of the olivary nucleus. Its appearance is often described as a crumpled bag, and you can totally see why. Look at that complex, folded structure of gray matter. Once you've seen it, it's an unmistakable landmark at this level of the medulla.
Okay, so to wrap up our journey, let's connect all these structures we've seen to what they actually do. We'll just quickly review the purpose of the key nuclei and tracts we've identified.
Remember that big, folded, crumpled bag structure we just saw? The inferior olivary nucleus? Well, it's a huge player in motor control. It's got major connections to the cerebellum, and it's thought to play a really crucial role in coordinating and, importantly, learning voluntary muscle movements.
Also located at this level are the vestibulocochlear nuclei. This complex is basically the first port of call for all sensory information coming from your inner ear. It processes all those vital inputs for both hearing and your sense of balance.
And of course, we can't forget the major tract that we literally watched being formed, the medial lemniscus. This is such a critical sensory superhighway, a bundle of fibers that's dutifully carrying precise information about touch, vibration, and body position, all the way from the spinal cord up towards the thalamus so you can consciously perceive it.
This final diagram just ties everything together so beautifully. It shows the elegant, precise organization of this region. You can see how the different cranial nerve nuclei are arranged in these neat columns within the brainstem. We can spot the nuclei for nerves like the vagus and hypoglossal, all housed within the tiny confines of the medulla we just explored.
So we've seen this incredibly intricate anatomy, all these crossing fibers and densely packed nuclei. But it's worth just pausing for a moment to reflect. This single, small, stalk-like structure controls our breath, our heartbeat, our very consciousness. What does that reveal about the relationship between our physical anatomy and existence itself? The connection, it seems, is nothing short of profound and completely inseparable.